Hillary, you practically drove me into her arms.
You ran me away, Hillary.
I'm a man. Needs, Hillary. You understand. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 21 of the Corman Fantasy Cast. Thank you for joining us this week. Week 3 is in the books. Week 4 lies ahead. With me today, last year's most prepared guest host, Anthony Bombo. Anthony, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much. It's always good to be back.
Any big picture ideas 3 weeks into the season?
It's early. I'm sure there's a lot that can happen in the next coming weeks. I personally have something I would like to propose. A little bit of maneuvering or adjusting the free agency we could talk about. But, we can get to that later on in the episode.
And get to that we will, as well as our top 5 game changers, our good GIF of the week, our rapid fire segment, Guru Start, Best Bench Player, Team of the Week, key matchups for week 4. Before we get into any of that, we would be remiss if we didn't get into this blockbuster trade that took place. 2 trades, really, both involving Da Silva and his team, Desd and Confused. You care to extrapolate that for us, Bombo?
Yeah. So when I first saw it, I just, it was just typical Mike, typical Da Silva trying to do whatever he can to trade whoever he can because he needs to trade. I thought the trade itself was kind of even.
Why don't you break down? What was that trade?
So you had just Kareem My Pants traded away Watkins, who just coming off a big game, to Dez and Confused, Hilton, which this was the week he just went off. Also,
right, yeah, he had a nice week this week as well.
So you got 2 question marks. You got Watkins, who got hurt, got banged up, could have a concussion, and you got Hilton with no luck. And luck is still no timetable for return. However, both these guys did just go off. So, maybe you built a little trust with Brissett and Hilton, and maybe Goff is starting to trust his brand new, weapon in Watkins. So I thought it was pretty even overall.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think that's a pretty innocuous trade. There's not a lot of tremors that go through the league from a trade like that.
Right.
And if you're Mike, it's a trade that really makes a lot of sense, right? You're playing with house money at this point. Your running backs are really carrying your team. So this is something that he can do that he really can't lose at, right? I mean, his team is going to be judged on the performance of his running backs and not on what either Sammy Watkins or T.Y. Hilton ends up doing. So for Mike, it's a no-brainer. Nothing to lose. And for Da Silva, you could make the argument that it could be a slight upgrade. But yeah, pretty even trade.
Pretty even trade. Then you get the sneak of all sneaks. And we got Da Silva trading away Murray, who's also just off a big game, but started off very slow. Don't really know what's going on there. You got Henry at the door, at the gates, just trying to get his touches. But you know what? Last year, Murray was the man early in the season, for most of the season. And this week, he really proved, even with that hamstring, he rocked out. But he traded away Murray with a young back who's trying to take his spot and a banged-up Watkins for Julio Jones and Doug Martin, who personally I believe is going to be great when he gets back.
Wow, so that's the trade that we're talking about. This is one that really, look, anytime you're talking about like a top 5 fantasy player like Julio Jones is, that's something that's going to have ramifications long term throughout the season. So when you look at Da Silva's wide receiver depth, you see that he has Terrell Pryor, you see that he has Michael Crabtree, you see that he has now Julio Jones, of course.
Julio Jones, Deshaun Jackson.
And Deshaun Jackson. I mean, he's just got tremendous wide receiver depth. I mean, he could even probably parlay one of his other receivers now and get a handsome return. But you know what? The funny thing is, Da Silva, You go to the guy. There's only two people in the Corpsman that are not wise to your tricks, to your riverboat gambling trade tricks, okay? And you went straight to one of them that was like, no offense, Kyle, but you're like a little baby deer, like a little fawn in the woods, and here comes the wolf, and he just devoured you, Kyle. So like you're like the second worst team in the entire Corpsman league at this point, okay? And you decide that the best way to get better is to trade away Julio Jones.
To Game Breakers!
So we'll jump right into this week's Game Breakers. We'll start with Game Breaker number 5. Team Norman. I know you're new to the league. We welcome you with open arms. But the point of fantasy football is to get positive points from your lineup. And Tampa Bay fucked you.
Yeah, I haven't relied on Tampa Bay's defense since they won the Super Bowl with John Gruden as their coach. At number 4, our number 4 game breaker, slut daughter hater, Mr. Spiffy ST, gets slut daughtered by the Raiders, and that's Amari Cooper and Marshawn Lynch, giving him a combined 3.2 points. Ouch! That is disgusting.
Yeah, that hurts. But it's suiting that a slut daughter hater gets slut daughtered. So we go to game breaker number 3. Chris Thompson on your bench.
I'll be honest, after back-to-back 20-point weeks, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I was kind of desperate, just picking him all off the scrap heap. But I will say I did pick him up before the David Johnson injury. That is a fact, Jack.
That is a fact.
And of course, every week it seems we have to go through this, so why not have fun with the name? At number 2, I just Kareemed my pants, and his duo, the Karimi Girls. And the Karimi Girls explode. The Karimi Girls explode and gush out with 56, 55, 56 points.
Yeah,
combined.
the Karimi Girls put up 56-something points.
That is just juicy.
You know what's real exciting? I get the Karimi Girls this week.
Wow. I really don't envy you.
It's something that should be envied. But in the Corpsman, it's something to be feared. So our Game Breaker 2. No, our Game Breaker 1. We got Beers, number 1 pick, Jay Ajayi, going for a whopping 2.6 points.
Ouch. And remember, that's in a game that was decided by 3 points. So that's a really, really decisive shit sandwich.
If you got a typical
that Bears
game...
just ate.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
If you got a typical game out of your number 1 running back, that was your win.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge one. So those are the top 5 game breakers, people. All right, folks. Now we want to switch gears here. And we want to have an open forum discussion about something that was proposed recently on the message board by Bombo Berry himself. So I'll give you the floor now.
That's right. So it wouldn't be a typical year in the Corpsman if I hadn't tried to do something unorthodox. I believe, or I propose, I wouldn't even call it really a rule change. Maybe, I don't know what I'd call it. I don't think it's a rule change. But what I propose is that all players should not enter the waiver wire until their game starts. So if you have guys going at 1 o'clock, those teams are all locked. However, the 4 and 8 o'clock games and the Monday night games are still open. That leaves you with the ability, let's say you have Odell Beckham. I don't know, anybody. Beckham, let's just say Beckham. He's going, late Monday night. And you don't really find out, or Sunday night even, you don't find out until early Sunday morning or Monday that, your player, Beckham, is not going to go. In his place would step in Roger Lewis. I wouldn't take Roger Lewis personally, but let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that's somebody you want to now take because he's now going to step up in Beckham's place. I feel that a player should have or a manager should have the opportunity to fill their lineup if their star player, or somebody that they intend to start, is injured or questionable until their game is a game time decision, however. So basically, it just gives you with more leeway time to fill your roster if a guy that you're dead set on starting is now not going to go, and you don't find out until game time.
Okay, so this is something that I disagree. And one of the things I love about you, Bombo, is that you're always thinking, you're always throwing things out there. You always have the best of intentions, although I think this time you may be a bit misguided. So a couple of things that I have a problem with here. The first thing is that you would have to admit that there are certain teams that tend to play more on Sunday and Monday nights than other teams. These would be your New York Giants, your Dallas Cowboys, your Pittsburgh Steelers, your New England Patriots, your Green Bay Packers. There would be an inherent advantage to people who were, say, fans of those teams that wanted to draft heavy on those teams. They would have an inherent advantage with this because they would have 2 extra days' time for one or maybe multiple roster spot moves. Another problem that I have with this is that, to be clear, I think that even though it might be a minor disadvantage, it still is, or a minor advantage for the person who has the person going Monday night, it still is an advantage. And it, in my mind, doesn't present a level playing field. I think when you close free agency at 1 o'clock on Sunday, I think you reasonably allow people to make moves between the Thursday night game and forward. You can't start at Thursday, but I think having that 1 p.m. cutoff is it creates a level playing field. And I think that this is something that could actually be used to draft strategically, because you could comprise your team going into a draft in a way that allows you to have the kind of flexibility that you know you'll have on like a Monday night or a Sunday night for primetime games, because there are teams that tend to play in those. And I think that anything that is a draftable, like a rule change that applies to drafting strategy, is something that I feel should be decided in the off season, rather than mid season. The other thing, and I can't take credit for this because Brian and I discussed this once you posted it on the message board, and a point that Brian brought up, which I think is a good point, is that if you use your example of Odell Beckham and you find out that he's not going, in order to pick somebody up in free agency, who else would you drop other than Odell Beckham Jr.? How many people on your roster do you have that you can expend that are only going Monday night? Remember, you would have to drop somebody in order to pick that somebody up. So for the example of Odell Beckham Jr., I would rather eat a 0 than risk losing Odell Beckham Jr. because I have to drop him to put in maybe a 4th string guy that might get a few extra touches.
Are you not able to drop somebody who already went?
Well, now that would create a very distinct disadvantage, right? Because then you're opening up and you have the ability to pick and choose based on who you can kind of get rid of before.
You cannot drop someone who is gone.
Right, yeah, that's something that you can't even change the setting to allow that to happen.
You 100% can't do that.
I would never drop Odell for Roger Lewis.
Right, so yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what, when Brian and I spoke about this, that was the thing that he brought up was, well, who else would you drop? Right? You wouldn't, right? So that's an issue. And the only other thing that I wanted to bring up, and it's something that I thought it might be a rare case, but it's the idea that I know if I had, let's say, just this past week with Andre Ellington, he was a pivotal part of somebody's win this week, I believe.
Yeah.
So Andre Ellington goes in, and let's say he was questionable going in, and that game was close going into the final thing. That means that up to, say, 8:15 at night, whoever had Andre Ellington, if he was questionable and was in a close game, had the ability to drop him, which who cares if you lose Andre Ellington? Right? You drop Andre Ellington and pick up somebody who could put you over the edge. It leaves your opponent in a defenseless position where, his people have already gone. And I just view that, and, I don't want to be anti-progressive in this, but I just view that as kind of being an unfair advantage that you would have, or that the person doing that would have. So those are my problems, some of the problems I have with it, just on a couple days' notice. But listen, one thing I know is that this is a league of the people, and I have confidence that if the groundswell for this gains enough energy, then I'm sure it is something that will be brought up in the future.
Pew, pew.
This week's Guru Start of the Week hurts more than most because it's against myself. And we're going to go with Jared Cook. Picked up right before the Sunday game started. He started him, got him a solid 10 points for a tight end in a standard league.
Best bench player has to go, dubiously, to you, Bombo Berry. Stephon Diggs, 29 points on your bench, and I know you definitely lost by less than 29 points. That could have really helped.
Next, we'll go to Team of the Week with Knuckles.
Say no more, Mona Moore. And finally, our matchup of the week. This week, week 4, is Friends Week in the Corman as besties Mr. Spiffy ST and Adrian Peterson engage in a pillow fight for the ages, while Fournette and Team Normie also square off, and I've heard that they are really, really tight. I heard that Joe once laid his jacket across a puddle for Marvin so that Marvin could walk across and so his Air Jordans wouldn't get wet.
Oh, that's sweet. I heard Delahanty and Kyle go on vacations together.
And now it's time for the GIF
Of
the
week.
All right, so we have many, many contenders, but there can be only one winner. We culled it down to 3 spectacular finalists. First, everyone's second favorite presidential candidate from 2016, really going deep. Here's Hillary Goes Deep.
Mike's selfie of his turgina.
Ew. And finally, as he continues to climb up the Corman Power Rankings, Big Joe Holiday getting ready for his 3-0 press conference. And this week's winner is
Hillary Goes Deep.
Who was that by again? Who did that? CJ. You know, I gotta say, CJ, you may be 0-3, but like I feel like you're really undefeated when it comes to GIFs. You've really had some good
He's been
ones
solid
over
on the GIFs of this.
solidly
for this
in so one who's always in the hunt.
year. Yeah.
In the Kareem
There's a couple
hunt, as
creepy
Mike
pictures
might
that we
say.
didn't mention that should have been in there, maybe, but you know. And
Yeah.
those are also from CJ.
Well done, C. You won something this week. That's it for today. Before we go, just want to mention that the Corman Fantasy League and the Corman Fantasy Cast is affecting the fantasy universe for the better. We have inspired other leagues to put up their own fantasy casts through various channels and various platforms. So we want to, say congratulations to those of you in the Corman who have taken that to your other leagues. And we look forward to the Corman dominance growing as we take over the whole fantasy universe. Very slowly, but we will eventually. Until next time. Oh, and I want to thank you, Mr. Bombleberry, for being here
Thank
today.
you very much. My pleasure.
A lot of great discussion. Look forward to seeing some good GIFs and some crazy message board shit as we go through the week. Until next time, Ave Atque Vale.
You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old past said. Boy, you got a friend in me. Yeah, you got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me. You got trouble, and I got 'em too. There isn't any